Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
Welcome to a brand new deep dive. And today, we are exploring something that, honestly, every single one of us deals with. We struggle with it, and frankly, we crave it on a daily basis.
Yeah, absolutely.
We are looking at the art, the science, and the culture of human connection, specifically how you and I are experiencing it right now in the year 2026.
It really is. It's the ultimate human puzzle. We are completely biologically wired to want to connect with other people, but the actual mechanics of how that connection happens often feel like, I don't know, some mysterious, elusive magic that you either just naturally have or you don't.
Right, which is incredibly frustrating if you feel like you don't have it.
Oh, totally. It feels hopeless.
But that is exactly what we are demystifying for you today.
Yeah.
We have this massive stack of sources to guide us. We're pulling from the clinical psychology of deep relationships, practical guides for first dates, conversational storytelling, plus the foundational science of interpersonal attraction, and even strategies for online dating prompts. And on top of all that, we are weaving in a really fascinating cultural forecast from Boardroom.
Yeah, that boardroom piece is great.
It really is. It details exactly how pop culture is reflecting all of these relational shifts right now in 2026.
And our mission for this deep dive is actually really straightforward. We want to provide you with a masterclass in connecting with others.
Yes.
We are going to map out the entire journey for you. So starting from that initial digital spark on an app, moving through the crucial first in-person conversation all the way down to clinical, deep vulnerability. Because the truth is, human connection is not just magic.
It really isn't.
No, it's a measurable, understandable process. It's something that you can learn, you can practice it, and you can apply it in your daily life.
I love that framing because I feel like it takes so much pressure off.
Yeah.
You don't have to be the most naturally charismatic person in the room. There's an actual science to this that anyone can leverage. So let's just start right at the beginning with the spark. How does attraction actually work on a biological and psychological level? And then how do we translate that into the digital front door of modern dating apps?
Well, to really grasp that, we have to look at the psychology of interpersonal attraction. A foundational concept in our sources is Don Byrne's interpersonal attraction judgment scale.
Right.
Attraction is essentially driven by a combination of physical and psychological factors. So on the physical side, we are biologically wired to look for indicators of genetic health.
Okay, so that's the classic good genes theory, right?
Yeah, exactly. It usually manifests as a preference for things like facial symmetry.
So you look at a symmetrical face, and your brain just subconsciously flags it as healthy DNA, even if you were, literally just looking for a casual coffee date.
Precisely. Your biology is always running in the background. But the psychological factors are just as powerful, and arguably they are much more important for any kind of long-term connection.
Okay, so what are those psychological factors?
There are two major roles at play here. The first is the propinquity effect.
Propinquity, that is a great word.
It's a fancy way of saying that the more we are exposed to someone, the more we tend to like them.
Ah.
Think about the person who makes your coffee every morning, or a coworker you see in the break room every Tuesday. Familiarity breeds comfort, and comfort breeds liking.
That makes total sense. It's why long-distance relationships or purely digital connections can feel so incredibly difficult to maintain over time.
Yeah.
You just lack that baseline propinquity.
Exactly. You don't have that repeated natural exposure.
So what is the second rule?
The second is the similarity attraction effect. So the old saying that birds of a feather flock together,
Right. Yeah.
that is entirely scientifically accurate. We are strongly, inherently drawn to people who share our attitudes, our backgrounds, and our values. It essentially validates our own worldview when we see it reflected in someone else.
Which brings up a massive challenge for anyone listening to this who is currently swiping on their phone.
Oh, it's a huge hurdle.
How in the world do you manufacture propinquity and similarity when you are just a two-dimensional profile on a screen?
Right. It's really tough.
And this is where Lori Gerber's advice on dating site prompts from our stack comes in. Think about the last time you stared at that blank box on an app that asks, what makes you unique?
The dreaded blank box.
It's the worst. But Gerber says the absolute biggest do here is to be relentlessly specific.
Because specificity acts as a hook. Generic statements give the human brain absolutely nothing to latch onto.
So instead of writing something like, I love travel.
Because frankly, who doesn't like going on vacation?
Exactly. Instead of that, you need to drill down. You write, I once took a solo trip to Lisbon purely to find the world's best custard tart.
That is such a good example.
Or you drop in, a highly specific, high-value detail, like the fact that you consider yourself a true 50-50 introvert-extrovert.
Yeah.
Those details are what spark curiosity.
Right. They give the person reading your profile an easy, natural opening to tease you or ask a follow-up question.
It's basically handing them the conversation starter on a silver platter.
It is. It provides a shared anchor point. If someone else reading that profile loves Lisbon, or maybe they have really strong opinions on baked goods, or they consider themselves an ambivert too, you have instantly triggered that similarity attraction effect.
You've created a moment of, oh, me too, completely through a screen.
Exactly. Now, on the flip side...
Yes, let's talk about the don'ts. Because the sources highlight a very common trap here. Do not trauma dump in your profile.
Please don't.
I see this constantly. People will vent in their prompts about their past relationships, or they'll write a paragraph about how awful and exhausting modern dating is.
From a psychological standpoint, trauma dumping completely backfires because it demands a level of emotional processing that a stranger has simply not consented to yet.
That is a great way to put it. They haven't consented to that wait.
Right. You are skipping the natural, gradual progression of intimacy. Plus, it totally breaks that similarity rule we just talked about.
Because instead of bonding over shared interests, you're just projecting negativity.
Exactly. Instead of bonding over a fun quirk, you are immediately putting the other person on the defensive. People generally want to associate with positive, cheerful energy, especially at the very beginning of an interaction.
Gerber also points out another mistake, which is that you have to write for the right audience. Which sounds obvious, but it trips a lot of people up.
How so?
Well, for example, she notes that a lot of women write dating prompts that sound like they are trying to attract a new female best friend.
Ah, I see what you mean.
They'll write that their ideal date is long dinners with no phones and deep conversations about our feelings, which sounds lovely. But if you are a woman looking for a man, that might inadvertently sound a bit heavy or demanding right out of the gate.
It's just a very intense expectation.
Exactly. Her advice is to keep it light and use playful teasing instead. Something like, dating me is like a good laugh, a full fridge, and absolutely no interest in fixing you.
What's fascinating here is how these highly specific, slightly humorous prompts act as a natural built-in filter.
Or filter.
Yes, they don't just attract a higher volume of people, they attract the right kind of people. By being unapologetically specific about your quirks, you allow the similarity rule to organically draw in a match who actually resonates with your authentic self.
While actively repelling the people who wouldn't be a good fit anyway.
Precisely. It saves everyone time.
Okay, let's move the timeline forward. You nailed the digital prompt, the similarity rule worked its magic, and now you are face-to-face in the real world on a first date.
Or maybe you're just at a networking event or a dinner party.
Right, any first encounter. How do we break the ice without making it feel like a sterile job interview?
This is a crucial transition point. You need to establish rapport quickly to ease the tension. And one highly effective method from our stack comes from Vin Jiang, who teaches a technique called cold reading statements.
I read this part of the source material, and I have to admit, I was a little skeptical at first.
A lot of people are.
Because the idea is that instead of asking a generic question like, what do? You observe the person and make a definitive, positive statement about a trait you perceive in them.
Right.
So you meet someone, you notice they have a very expressive, high-energy vibe. And you say, just having met you for 30 seconds, you seem like someone who's extremely adventurous.
Yes.
But wait, hold on. If someone walked up to me and assumed my entire personality after 30 seconds, I might find that a little presumptuous or even arrogant. How do you walk that line without sounding like a know-it-all?
That is a very fair critique, and it all comes down to the delivery and the intention. It shouldn't be delivered as a psychological diagnosis.
Right, you're not their therapist.
Exactly. It should be a playful observation. The psychological brilliance of the cold read, when done lightly, is that it creates a win-win-win scenario. There are only 3 possible outcomes, and every single one benefits the interaction.
Okay, walk me through the outcomes.
Outcome 1. You are completely wrong. You say they seem adventurous, and they laugh and correct you, saying they are actually a total homebody who loves routine.
Okay, so the tension is broken.
Right. Suddenly the ice is broken, and you are learning something genuine about them because they are naturally explaining their true self to correct the record.
That makes sense. It prompts a real answer instead of a rehearsed elevator pitch.
Yeah.
What's outcome 2?
Outcome 2. You are wrong, but they ask why you thought that. They say, adventurous. Why would you say that?
Oh, I like that.
It gives you the perfect natural opening to give them a sincere compliment based on your observation. You can say, oh, you just speak so freely and you have such great confident energy.
So it opens the door for validation. And the third outcome.
Outcome 3 is that you are correct. And when you correctly identify a positive trait in someone they just met, they feel deeply seen and understood.
Which accelerates the intimacy process immediately.
Exactly. The only strict caveat Jang gives is that the statement must always be positive.
Yes, if you take away nothing else today, please do not walk up to your date and say, just having met you for 30 seconds, you look like someone who's extremely neurotic.
That will not end well.
Keep it positive.
Yeah.
Now, once that ice is broken, the conversation needs to flow. And that brings us to the ultimate currency of human connection, which is storytelling.
Storytelling is everything, and Scott H. Young provides a fantastic framework in our sources for conversational storytelling.
Yeah, he actually starts his breakdown with a joke about a massive supercomputer.
I love this joke.
The scientists turn it on, and it spends a week humming and calculating, pondering the nature of its own existence and the universe, only to finally print out a single piece of paper with the words, that reminds me of a story.
Because stories are fundamental to how the human brain processes reality.
We don't remember facts, we remember narratives.
Exactly. Young breaks down a good conversational story into 4 rules. Rule 1, start with a hook. Do not start with 3 minutes of boring backstory about what day of the week it was.
Start with the reason they should care.
Rule 2, keep it concise. Think about the last time you were trapped at a party listening to someone tell a story that had absolutely no end in sight. Don't be that person.
We've all been there.
Rule 3, know your punchline or your main point before you even open your mouth.
If you don't know where you're going, they won't either.
And rule 4, which is perhaps the most critical for actually connecting with someone, create feeling.
Create feeling.
Yes. A story isn't just a dry recitation of chronological facts. It is a series of emotional highlights. When you tell a story, your goal is to make the listener experience the emotion of the event alongside you, whether that's frustration, joy, or embarrassment.
This connects so perfectly to the advice we pulled from Men's Journal. It was curated by relationship experts Sarah Jones and Samira Sullivan.
Great, first date questions.
Yes, they put together a list of first date questions specifically designed to help you escape that dreaded interview mode. Instead of asking the standard boring questions, you ask things like, if you could hop on a plane right now, where would you go?
Or you ask, what are your weirdest quirks? Or what's something about you that I would never guess?
These questions are incredibly effective because they inherently prompt the other person to utilize Scott H. Young's storytelling techniques without even realizing it.
They invite a hook, they invite emotion, and they invite a narrative rather than a resume bullet point.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Let's say the date goes wonderfully. The stories were engaging, the cold reading worked, the sparks are flying. How do we transition from that casual banter to actual profound connection?
That's the real challenge.
What is the actual science of intimacy?
For that, we turn to the clinical work of Jonathan Cantor at the University of Washington. He provides a very precise clinical definition in our sources.
Okay.
Intimacy is not just a warm, fuzzy feeling. It is an active interpersonal process. Specifically, he defines it as repeated reciprocal exchanges of vulnerability and responsiveness.
Repeated reciprocal exchanges.
Yeah.
It really is like a dance. You step forward, they step forward.
Exactly. And Cantor maps out the mechanics of this closeness into 8 core processes.
I want to slow down here because this is huge. He lists awareness, emotional expression, providing safety, vulnerable self-disclosure, validation, asking, giving, and accepting the response, which is gratitude.
It is a comprehensive list, but let's look at a practical example of how these actually play out, particularly providing safety and validation.
Okay, give me a scenario.
Imagine someone comes home from work and shares a deep fear that they are going to be fired. They are initiating that vulnerable self-disclosure.
Right.
Providing safety means the partner listens and holds space for that fear, rather than immediately jumping in with a 5-step plan to fix the resume or critique their workplace performance.
Oh, man, that is such a common trap. I know I do that.
Yeah.
You think you are helping by problem solving, but by skipping the validation step, you are actually shutting down the intimacy.
You really are.
You're essentially telling them their feeling is a problem to be solved rather than an experience to be shared.
Exactly. This echoes the famous Fast Friends procedure developed by Arthur Aaron.
Is that the 36 questions?
Yes, you might know it as the 36 questions that lead to love. He created a series of questions designed to generate interpersonal closeness in a laboratory setting by forcing that reciprocal vulnerability.
It's fascinating that it works in a lab.
It is, but Aaron's research highlights a crucial point. The words alone aren't enough. The intimacy is heavily generated through the nonverbal synchrony that happens while answering the questions.
So it's the prolonged eye contact, the facial mimicry, matching the physical and emotional tone of the person sitting across from you.
Yes, it's not just what you say to them, it's the fact that your body language is physically and emotionally mirroring their experience in real time.
This raises an important question.
Well, this raises an important question about how we actually respond when someone takes that leap and is vulnerable with us. There is a fascinating, highly counterintuitive finding from the research regarding positive versus negative disclosures.
Okay, if you are listening to this and wondering why your partner or your best friend sometimes gets annoyed with you when you are just trying to be supportive, pay attention to this part.
Yes, listen closely.
Because we usually think intimacy is built in the dark moments, right?
Yeah.
When we are comforting someone who is crying or sharing a tragedy.
While validating negative disclosures is absolutely important, the research shows that how we respond to positive disclosures is crucial. It's a psychological process called capitalization.
Capitalization.
And it is actually highly predictive of long-term intimacy and relationship survival.
Wow.
If someone shares a victory and you actively, enthusiastically celebrate it with them, it builds a massive amount of trust.
Let's use an example. If your partner comes home and says, I finally got that promotion, capitalization means you match their energy. You say, that is amazing. Let's go out to dinner to celebrate. I am so proud of you.
Exactly. Match the energy.
But we so often fail at this.
We do. The biggest obstacle to capitalization is our own anxiety. Instead of matching the joy, a partner might respond to that promotion news by saying, oh, wow, are you going to have to work longer hours now? What about our weekend plans?
Ouch. Yeah. We let our own immediate anxieties override the simple act of being emotionally present and responsive to their joy. We just deflate the balloon.
We completely deflate it.
So we have covered the digital spark, the art of storytelling, and the clinical mechanics of building intimacy through validation and capitalization. Now let's zoom out. How is this fundamental biological craving for connection shaping the world around us right now?
It's shaping everything.
Because the cultural forecast from Boardroom for 2026 shows that the media we consume is directly mirroring our interpersonal relationship needs.
The parallels are actually striking when you look at the data. Boardroom predicts that in 2026, major streaming platforms are heavily pivoting.
Pivoting how?
They are shifting away from the endless content hose and releasing fewer, but much bigger and more carefully curated projects. They are doing this to combat massive subscriber fatigue.
Which perfectly mirrors Scott H. Young's rule about storytelling that we just discussed.
Yes, exactly.
Keep it concise. Don't overwhelm your listener with volume. Focus on the emotional impact. If you think about the massive rise of the limited series we are seeing in 2026, it satisfies our desire for a contained, meaningful narrative.
Without the exhausting, never-ending commitment of an 8-season show.
Right. We want curated quality in our media, just like we want it in our conversations.
We are also seeing a massive drive toward shared experience through corporate consolidation. A prime example in the sources is the landmark $82.7 billion Netflix acquisition of HBO Max.
Which is expected to close in Q3 of this year.
Yes. By bringing all of that massive intellectual property under one single roof, it creates a unified cultural water cooler.
And if we tie that back to the psychology of dating, it makes total sense.
Sure.
Think about how hard it is to find a common topic on a first date when everyone is watching obscure niche content on 15 different platforms.
It's impossible to find common ground.
But by consolidating the media, it manufactures that similarity attraction effect on a global scale. Everyone is finally watching and talking about the same things again, which gives us those shared anchor points to bond over.
We are also seeing proof that we are still deeply obsessed with watching other people attempt to navigate the messy process of connection.
Oh, absolutely.
The forecast notes that Taylor Frankie Paul's season of The Bachelorette is breaking viewership records. It is bridging legacy fans with a completely new social native audience.
It proves that despite all our technology, we just cannot look away from the raw vulnerability of human attraction playing out in real time.
And that social native audience is also driving a massive shift in how media is created, specifically through what Boardroom calls the vertical video pipeline.
Let's define that, because it's a bit of industry jargon.
Sure.
This refers to the fact that creators on platforms like TikTok, who have built deep parasocial intimacy with their audiences, are now getting massive studio deals. And parasocial intimacy is basically that feeling when you watch a vlogger make their morning coffee every day for a year.
Right.
And your brain genuinely starts to categorize them as a real-life friend, even though you have never met them.
They are mimicking Cantor's 8 core processes of connection entirely through a screen.
Exactly.
TikTok itself is expanding beyond just short videos into a full discovery engine. They're integrating music, ticketing, and longer-form content based entirely on what resonates with us on a visceral, emotional level.
The pipeline from a phone screen to a major motion picture is shorter than ever because studios recognize the power of that built-in intimacy.
But there is a catch to all this digital connection. Just like we demand authentic vulnerability in our deep, real-life relationships, audiences in 2026 are demanding authenticity in their media.
Yes. Boardroom notes the new industry standard of AI usage disclosure policies. We want to know if what we are connecting with is human or artificial.
We require creative transparency, just like we require emotional transparency from a partner.
So true.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the through line across all our sources is undeniable. Whether you are swiping on a dating app, trying to find a clever prompt, engaging in a vulnerable face-to-face conversation about your fears, or just choosing what limited series to stream on a Friday night, human beings in 2026 are desperately seeking authentic, resonant experiences.
We are constantly trying to find ourselves reflected in others.
Always.
So what does this all mean for you? Let's synthesize this masterclass. Whether you are tweaking your dating app prompt tonight, trying to tell a more engaging story at a dinner party this weekend, or working to deepen a long-term relationship, the underlying mechanics are exactly the same.
They really are.
You need specific, engaging hooks to draw people in. You have to be willing to engage in repeated, reciprocal vulnerability. You need to make a positive assumption about the person sitting across from you.
And above all, you have to actively validate their experiences, especially when they share their joy with you.
Connection isn't just a happy accident. It is an active, daily practice.
I think that is a perfect summary. And I would like to leave you with a final thought to mull over, looking at where these psychological concepts meet our technological future.
Okay, let's hear it.
We talked today about how deep intimacy is fundamentally just a sequence of repeated reciprocal exchanges of vulnerability and responsiveness. Things like the 36 questions.
Right.
And 2026 is the year AI has truly become ubiquitous in our media and our storytelling. So how long will it be before a conversational AI learns to perfectly mirror those 8 core processes?
Oh, wow.
Will we eventually see humans forming genuine, clinical, emotional intimacy with artificial intelligence simply because the AI knows exactly how to trigger our biological and psychological markers for connection?
That is a wild thought to end on. If the machine does the dance perfectly, does our brain even care that it's a machine?
Something to really think about.
Definitely something to ponder the next time you are opening up your favorite app.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into human connection. We will catch you next time.